Hurricane Melissa made landfall in Cuba just a short time ago after slamming Jamaica as one of the most powerful storms on record there. Hundreds of thousands of people in Jamaica are waking up in the dark this morning with flooding and landslides threatening recovery efforts. Now, we do not yet know the full scale of Melissa's damage. We can give you a quick live look at Kingston. This is Jamaica's capital city. This shot coming to us via webcam. It apparently avoided a direct hit from the storm, but officials in the country say infrastructure in the nation did take a severe hit and rebuilding will be slow. CBS News' Jared Hill is here with me in studio with more. Jared, good morning. What more do we know?
Hey, good morning, Errol. You know, even as Hurricane Melissa moved past Jamaica overnight, the National Hurricane Center warned that lingering rain could trigger flash floods and landslides. I mean, you can see behind me, we're already getting early glimpses of some of that destruction as President Trump says the U.S. is ready to send humanitarian aid. New images show the extent of the devastation in Jamaica after Hurricane Melissa, one of the strongest storms on record, slammed into the island on Tuesday.
Jamaica's gone through what I can call one of its worst periods.
Heavy storm surge left streets underwater, sustained winds up to 185 miles per hour, ripped off roofs, uprooted trees, and brought down power lines. Local officials say hundreds of thousands of people are without electricity.
Here is our home away from home.
American tourists Steve and Wendy Shirk hunkered down during the storm in a shelter at their resort in Ocho Rios.
The guests, they've been very cooperative. They've been very reassured. There's no panic.
It was peaceful in the shelter.
The storm being watched closely across the U.S., where the latest census shows more than 1 million people identify as Jamaican or Jamaican American.
I have my sisters, I have nephews, I have nieces in Kingston, Jamaica.
Texas restaurant owner Errol Biles has been working to get supplies to the island to help with the recovery.
I've partnered with a local nonprofit organization that is collecting canned foods, personal items, baby diapers, baby food.
Meanwhile, heavy rains and floods now batter Cuba, where thousands have already evacuated. Speaking of those evacuations, Cuba evacuated about 750,000 people ahead of the storm, which landed as a Category 3. A big concern there, though, is what Hurricane Melissa will do to the island's infrastructure, Errol, that is already fragile.
Yeah, we'll keep a close eye on all of this. Jared, thank you. Aid groups are already gearing up to help Jamaica recover and rebuild from Melissa. Last night on the Daily Report, Lindsay Reiser spoke to the director of the World Food Programme's Caribbean office about the challenges WFP and the island now face.
I think it's really important to understand that in a mountainous landscape, what we're looking at are potential for landslides, flash flooding, that has clear impacts on bridges and infrastructure. So the movement of supplies from central depots to the areas where they're needed most is extremely challenging if we don't have access because bridges are wiped out. But in addition, airports, port facilities, the core infrastructure of the country could be impacted, and that may cause delays in bringing support in from outside. But I think it's also important to note that we have major storm surges that have been projected for Southwest Jamaica, and that could cause serious issues with infrastructure, and people are already devastated by the impacts. Some homes, I've seen images of homes that have already been submerged, government buildings that have been completely destroyed. So we are really preparing for the worst and ready to do whatever we can.
CBS News correspondent Jason Allen rode out this historic storm in Kingston, Jamaica. He's now getting a first-hand look at the damage. Jason, good morning. What was last night like, and what does the daylight bring?
Good morning, Errol. It was another long night for people in Jamaica because even as the storm moves past the island, the backside of it was still bringing really extreme winds. There was rain that was falling, heavy rain, well into the night, and so people didn't get a lot of sleep. Now, in the capital city of Kingston, the power is on, and as we moved across this morning, we didn't see extensive damage. Now, as we move further west, and that's what we're doing this morning, we're here in Old Harbor, no power here. We hear generators running, and we know from talking to locals, it gets worse the farther west that you go, which is what we're doing today.
And what, Jason, are officials saying about infrastructure? I know you mentioned power is out in so many places. Any idea of the assistance needed?
Yeah, well, there's power. We know some of the water systems have failed. We know that there is likely going to be some minimal damage to buildings from Kingston and in those areas just to the west. But there, out that direction towards Santa Cruz and Black River, it's extensive. We talked a little bit to the Prime Minister yesterday about that. Here's what he told us.
There's scarcely any building or infrastructure that would escape without some form of damage. We have budgeted and we have prepared a certain level of response, but a Category 5 would require support from the international community.
Yeah, and so you hear that, it's going to be devastation, and I really don't think that we have realized the full impact of it yet. We're not going to get a better sense of that until the day goes on today.
And that was going to be my final question to you, Jason. You know, did Kingston at least avoid the worst of this, but you're going to continue to push west and see what you find?
Yeah, Kingston did avoid the worst of this, and the big difficulty today, of course, to see what we find, Errol, and this is for aid groups too and assistance groups, it's just going to be access getting into these places. All right, last night, a lot of these roads in and out were flooded. We don't know the condition of those roads this morning. So even just getting there to assess the damage is going to be the first hurdle that everybody has to overcome. The good news is with power on in Kingston, that probably means that the airport will get open sooner rather than later. That'll be very, very important to getting that much needed aid here into the country.
All right, Jason, we will stay close to your reporting as you discover more. Joining us from Kingston. Jason, thanks. Meteorologist Rob Marciano is back with us again, tracking the storm's path. Rob, millions of people are still at risk from Melissa.
They are, and I can tell you if you think back to Hurricane Maria and how mountainous Puerto Rico is, the road structure there better than Jamaica. That's how challenging it's going to be, like Jason said. So that's our worry here. I think flyovers is probably what the first thing they're going to do today to kind of assess some of that damage. But the western part of Jamaica, certainly devastated. Now the eastern part of Cuba is where this storm is making landfall just a few hours ago overnight as a Category 3 storm. So a formidable major hurricane. The mountains here are tearing it apart a little bit, but the rainfall is certainly being squeezed out of that. Now, to put things in perspective, just how strong Melissa was, it ties for the strongest Atlantic landfalling hurricane on record. Dorian in 2019 in the Bahamas, Labor Day storm, that's the Florida Keys in 1935, 185 mile per hour, just a devastating blow here to the western part of Cuba. All right, we do have hurricane watches and warnings that remain up. The rainfall is going to be a big issue still to come. Another 10 to 20 inches here in the mountains. So flooding and mudslides certainly going to be an issue. And then we've got the warnings that are posted here. So the track is going to bring it through the Bahamas, but kind of splits the main part of the Turks and Caicos and the main part of the Bahamas. So just some of the smaller islands of the Bahamas, they're going to get hit hard today for sure. And then ejecting up towards Bermuda. Hurricane watch is there for potentially a Category 1 storm coming into that area. So we've got the warnings that are posted for the Bahamas and left over here in Cuba. The storm surge is going to continue to come into Cuba. And our Guantanamo Bay military base there certainly affected by that. But the good news is that this is going to be brought off towards the east because of a trough that's on the East Coast. It does mean a kind of a miserable next couple of days for the eastern half of the country in the way of rainfall, but the winds here will be remaining offshore. We won't get a direct strike here in the U.S., but a little bit of Melissa in the way of some rain and kind of amplifying the winds on the East Coast tomorrow. We'll feel that, but another miss for the U.S. mainland, which is good news.
Yeah, that certainly is. Rob, thank you very much.
You bet, buddy.
In the middle of all this devastation, there are stories of resilience and neighbors helping neighbors. Andrea Lee manages a bed and breakfast in Lucy. That's a town on Jamaica's northwest coast, and she joins us now. Andrea, thank you very much for joining us. Very few people have been anywhere near a storm of the size and strength that you just lived through. What were the conditions like as it made landfall?
So for us, it was we fared pretty well. Outside, it was horrendous. It was horrible. The sounds were terrible. That's probably the worst part of it for us. From a structure standpoint, we fared very well. I think we're in a purpose-built structure. We kind of built this place with the intention that hurricanes do hit Jamaica. So we fare very well from a structural standpoint. The facilities outside, though that's where we have some damage, but no damage to the main structure. And we've been able to maintain power. We have electricity. There's none in our community, but we've been pretty much up and running from a main functionality standpoint. It's just the exterior the landscape is devastating for us.
And Andrea, when you think about the experience, it sounds like your guests are okay, but I'm curious if you've been able to travel around the area, take a look at the wider community yet?
So we haven't ventured out, but we have neighbors that have ventured to our facility for different purposes, to kind of get their phones charged and to call their relatives. So we've heard from them that the devastation it's terrible. The roads are blocked, is what I'm hearing. So I think a lot of us are not venturing out too far yet until we can get some information on the conditions of the roads. The concern is the power lines being down and being electrocuted. I think that's probably the biggest concern.
All right, Andrea Lee in Lucy on the northwest coast of Jamaica, thank you very much. Glad to hear your community is okay and that your building, at least, is still standing and appears to be well. We hope everyone else has similar good news. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Let's begin this morning with the breaking news. Hurricane Melissa is heading to the Bahamas today after making landfall in Cuba as a Category 3 storm this morning. It made historic landfall yesterday in Jamaica as a Category 5. Most of the rain has fallen in Jamaica, but forecasters are warning of the aftermath, which of course includes life-threatening flash floods and landslides, in addition to 4 damaged hospitals and nearly 500,000 people left without power. Earlier on CBS Mornings, we spoke to Jamaica's Minister of Water, Environment and Climate Change. He was just 75 miles from where the hurricane made landfall yesterday. Listen.
Much of the country is without power, certainly the western side of the island where the storm would have made landfall. But our primary focus now is the humanitarian relief effort. We're first doing an assessment to make sure that anyone who is stranded can be rescued. We're making sure that those who are without food are provided for. We're trying to get into the hospitals, which have had some damage, especially in Western Jamaica, to make sure that those who were sick and were ailing are indeed cared for, evacuated if necessary, to better conditions.
CBS News correspondent Jason Allen has more on this morning's recovery from Jamaica.
We've moved west to Mandeville this morning, and this is just about 40 miles or so from where Hurricane Melissa made landfall here in Jamaica. Stopped at this spot because until just a few minutes ago, this road was blocked. Tree had come down here, power lines had come down. There was people who came out. They were using machetes. I can see them further down the road now. They're trying to drag a couple more trees out of the roadway here. The highway has been clear all the way from Kingston to this point, but we understand there is some serious damage here in Mandeville and in the towns just down the road once we can get down there. Some of that's from flash flooding. In fact, if we look down in some of these gullies down here, we can get a sense that there were floods that just rushed through these areas. Don't know if they got up into these homes yet, but it's likely that these are the kind of conditions where we're going to see some of the damage in some of the neighborhoods that are here. The good thing with the highway getting open and more of it opening here as the morning goes on is that will make it that much easier to get those much needed aid supplies from Kingston west to the communities that are going to need it.
All right, Jason Allen reporting live for us from Jamaica. Let's bring in Christopher Box. He's the managing partner at Chilito's Jamexican restaurant in Kingston, Jamaica. Christopher, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Before we even get started, just tell us how you, your family, your staff, how are you holding up?
Morning, Vlad. Thanks for having me again. Wow, well, I would say this morning was a mixed bag. It was feelings of relief for, I think, a lot of people in Kingston, but also juxtaposed with feelings of horror just with the videos that's coming up from everywhere else in the island. I'm okay, my family's okay. We're checking in on our team members right now and everyone seems to be okay, minimal damage so far. And so again, that mix of relief for us here in Kingston, but also evolving feelings of horror with what's happening with the rest of the country.
Yeah, so you're no stranger to hurricanes in Jamaica, but just describe for us what it felt like when this Category 5 storm hit, because the Prime Minister was saying that there had never been anything like this in the recorded history of Jamaica. What did it feel like?
Yeah, we definitely felt the unprecedented nature of it. That came through loud and clear. So there's a lot of anticipation because this storm moves so slowly, and it felt quite strange. It also intensified so rapidly. And so there's a lot of anticipation, but concerned anticipation leading up to it. And then as the storm unfolded, yes, it was quite intense, even though Kingston was spared the brunt of it. It was intense. It was very loud, a lot of rain, lots of just scary noises, banging, trees breaking. And then as it started to pass, we started in Kingston, started to feel a bit of relief, but then those of us with a little bit of data started to see what was really happening in the other sides of the island, as I said. And so in the storm, you're feeling relief for your own self and your home, and you're hoping the best for your businesses. But, you're seeing what's happening in the rest of the country, and the horror starts unfolding as to how serious, how significant, how life-changing this is.
So having covered many natural disasters from hurricanes to earthquakes, I know one of the things once a storm or things settle down is people need food, they need water. Do you have electricity? And are you able to even get the restaurant back up and running so that in case people who weren't too adversely affected can find a hot meal?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's our goal to open for tomorrow. We have been, and not just Chilitos, but here in Kingston have been spared the brunt of it. So we actually haven't gone without power on Hope Road, where the restaurant is located. I know a lot of other places in Kingston still have electricity right now, still have running water right now. That cannot be the said for all the parts of the country, especially St. Elizabeth, St. James, Montego Bay, as I think you covered before, Mandeville. So we're aiming to open tomorrow as long as our team is safe and can safely get here. And we hope to be able to start serving our guests in our community again. But as I said, it is a mixed bag. It does feel quite strange that we are able to do this, but then other parts of the country is still uncertain as to what's really going to happen there.
Yeah, well, Christopher, I'm glad you guys are okay, glad your family is okay. And it would behoove us to stay in touch with our producers, because tomorrow, if you do get some people in there, it would be great to talk to some of them and to you as well as to how things are looking 48 hours after the storm. Christopher Box, thank you very much. Appreciate you.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Andrew Kozak with the first look at the national forecast. Andrew, you heard there, we were talking about this yesterday, Christopher saying that the intensity, but also how long it lingered over the island was what was most frightening.
Yeah, Vlad, a lot of times these storms will speed up 20, 30 miles per hour. We could see that at max. And, a lot of times even 15 is a decent speed. But, of course, we had this going so slow at some points, only about 5 to 10 miles per hour. And before that, when it was lingering just south of Jamaica, we were talking about 1 to 3 mile per hour movement. I'm standing right now on top of Cuba. The storm itself is starting to leave Cuba now as a Category 2 hurricane, move a little bit back, and we have the Bahamas. That's going to be the next target for Melissa as it continues to move over some warmer water, leaving Cuba. We may even see a little bit of strengthening. Let's bring you the latest stats right now on Melissa, because we are still looking at winds sustained at 105 miles per hour, 140 mile per hour gusts as a Category 2 at this point. As you can see here, we still have some pretty big bands. The storm extends out quite a bit, already looking at some heavy rain across the Bahamas. The storm itself now, the eye moving right off of the northern edge of Cuba. Second most populated city in Cuba, by the way, getting winds over 100 miles per hour. We're going to come back in a couple of minutes. I'm going to take you through the track of this, Bahamas, and then out to sea. It may affect a few other places, not the United States, Vlad, but we certainly are still going to see Melissa sticking in our forecast for a while, at least through the end of the weekend.
Okay, Andrew, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Now let's go back to Jamaica as the island reels from the impact of Hurricane Melissa. The Prime Minister has declared the entire country a disaster area after the hurricane made landfall yesterday as a Category 5 storm. It's one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes on record. Emergency officials describe the infrastructure as severely compromised. Now, this was the scene in Kingston when the hurricane made landfall. Much of Kingston received improvements to withstand stronger hurricanes, but the rest of Jamaica remains vulnerable in the days and weeks ahead. Just look at all that damage. That is because of storm surge. Up to 13 feet of surge could be possible across the island. Now, Hurricane Melissa moved to Cuba as a Category 3 storm. Take a look at the scene overnight there. At least 7 hurricane-related deaths have been reported, 3 in Jamaica, 3 in Haiti, and 1 in the Dominican Republic. That number could change today. Now, moments ago, our partners at the BBC spoke to Jamaica's Minister of Tourism on the recovery the country is now facing.
We will need international support, of course, and we are very heartened by the response that we've been getting from our international partners. And we have the will, and we have the determination, and we have the capacity to make that recovery as swift and indeed a better and stronger recovery for Jamaica than anyone can imagine.
What international help do you require?
Well, we're going to need equipment. We're going to need personnel, technical support in some of the areas. And already we are seeing responses where that is concerned. There's going to also be need for basic materials for construction and for rebuilding. We're going to need generators in some instances so that power in some of the areas could be restored as fast as possible. And of course, we are open to support from our humanitarian partners in relation to food supplies, as the case might be.
What help are you giving tourists? Because it is such a vital sector. You're the Minister of Tourism. Are you worried at all that even longer term it puts people off rather than people viewing this as some sort of freakish one-off?
Right. To bring back the industry as fast as possible and to build that confidence which has characterized destination with our guests over the years. We have 25,000 tourists on island at the moment, and they are all essentially in good nick. They are properly housed. The hotels that are damaged are minimally so in most cases. And so there are places within those hotels for the accommodation of our guests. The convention center, which was a shelter for it, had minimal usage over the period, interestingly, because we didn't have to have too many people in the shelter insofar as the tourists were concerned. So the tourists in Jamaica are safe. They are properly fed and properly looked after. We have protocols in relation to how they are treated by way of even offering special rates, distress rates as we call it, and even some properties are offering free accommodation during this difficult period, which hopefully will last in a day or so more. We plan to open the Norman Manley Airport today, and visiting with the Minister of Transport, the Sangsters International in Montego Bay later this afternoon, and we will make a determination as to the opening time for that one.
Okay, let's bring in meteorologist Jessica Birch now to talk more about this. Jess, you spoke about how the storm would be dangerous, how it would be deadly. We've seen some of the impact of that, some of the damage from the storm.
So much threat, so much impact when it came to this massive, explosive storm. I mean, it hit Jamaica as a Category 5. It hit Cuba as a Category 3. This is no joke of a storm. Now it's pushing over Cuba, starting to lose some of its energy because, of course, once you make landfall for a while, it starts to decay that energy. But I want to show you where we're at right now and where the storm is tracking, because eventually it will be pushing off the region of Cuba and all the way over into the Bahamas and pushing up into Bermuda right around the corner. So here's where it's at right now at a Category 2 status, 100-mile-per-hour sustained winds. Yesterday, it jumped to 185, making it record-breaking in a lot of ways. I'll talk more about that in just a bit. Here's where we're at right now. Hurricane warning still in effect for the Bahamas, stretched all the way down into Cuba as the storm continues to track slowly to the north and off into the east. Here's where it's at as we head into the next 48 hours, eventually pushing its way up into Bermuda, where they are also under a hurricane watch right now, which will be upgraded to a warning around the corner. So here's what it did for us. It brought in 10 foot of brought in 10 inches, of rain over into the Bahamas, and it's continuing to bring that right now as we speak, also up to around 7-foot waves and storm surge as we head into the afternoon hours today. Another thing to keep in mind too, it's still a Category 2 status with sustained winds up to around 100 miles per hour. It will start to lose some of its energy as it tracks its way north into cooler sea surface temperatures. But taking a look behind me, a couple things to mention with this. The winds are still whipping strong right now, anywhere up to around 100 mile per hour winds forecasted as this continues to track its way north up into Bermuda as early as Friday. So this is timed out into this weekend's forecast, still impacting thousands when it comes to its force. So now that that eye is starting to decay, it still has a lot of energy pushing back out into the Atlantic. That could allow for that to continue to stay strong, reinforcing that hurricane and tracking it north as it stays strong as a Category 2 up into Bermuda. It tied for number 1 when it came to one of the strongest landfall hurricanes on record, next to Dorian and Labor Day back in the 1930s. Now, it's also one of the strongest hurricanes when it comes to barometric altimeter pressure. We'll have more on that coming up in just a bit. For now, back to you.
All right, Jess, thank you.